We are live, ladies and gentlemen, or gentlemen and gentlemen. Got to make sure when this goes live on my YouTube here to make sure I mute.
Hey, everyone.
What's up, folks? Where's everybody hailing from? I saw a bunch of people earlier. Turkey, I think it was, Arkansas. A bunch of folks in the States there.
Yes.
I'm still out of breath from just running. So
I see a lot of people that recognize names from Georgia. I recognize a lot of names from your group, George.
Perfect. Hello, everybody. Whew.
What's up? What's up? There's it was kind of funny. We all took a minute to go reload on the caffeine. Right.
Yes, and you have to have it if you're gonna have like inspiring conversations about business. I feel like you need coffee, so it's like our drug, right? Makes everything better.
Yes, sir. Hot or cold? In my case, cold.
I'm on espresso number 4 today, so here we go.
Wow, that's heavy duty, high octane.
Yeah.
Hey, Carla.
What's up, Carla? And Kristen, a bunch of folks from my community too, which is nice to see.
I'm in Austin, Texas. Curious where everybody's calling in from. I see a lot of Mississippi, France, London, Canada, Alabama, Arkansas,
Hot Florida.
Florida.
Where in Florida?
Yeah. Click Coast. Nice. I like the logo too. Well done. Hot Florida, hot Belize down here. So what's going on, guys? Thanks for joining me one more time. This was kind of like a osmosis birth after having, our last call. People just wanted more of it. So I said, you know what? These two dudes are pretty awesome. What do you guys think? Let's do it. And they didn't hesitate. They were like, all hell yeahs about it. Right?
It's fun. Yeah, I appreciate you having us on, Jay, and always appreciate conversations about business and growth. And last time was really fun, and I think this is going to get more fun just as we get to know each other more, and we also get to understand the repeating questions from the community of where they're blocked at, and hopefully we can unblock them.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Should we get questions?
Definitely feel free to drop your questions in the chat here. We'll definitely try to get to as many as we can while we go. But I do have a couple from community that I'm going to drop in here. And I think it's kind of a loaded question to get started, right? Oh, there's a good one we can start with.
Oh, wow. Look at that. I always kind of dread this question, not because I don't have an answer for it. Not because it's because I actually have there is a lot of meaning behind it, and I always screw up the story. But I'll say, like, I've started multiple businesses. Thank you for the question, Carla. And every single time a company name has been challenging. When it really comes down to it is a business name is it should be elastic, meaning like it can move with you if you change directions. A name should be easy to say, easy to spell. And so like you're always shooting for that. That's what I was always shooting for. Now, ideally, on the fourth thing is it should have meaning to you. That's like the ideal. And so with Everbee, we were at my house and we kind of lived on an acre property, and I had my son, Axton is his name. And we saw bees, and we were just like, we would always appreciate bees, like on flowers, on trees or whatever it is. And he was like afraid of the bees. And I'm like, no, don't be afraid of the bees. Like bees are like one of the most amazing pieces of this entire world. Like we wouldn't have food, we wouldn't have fruits, we wouldn't have vegetables, we wouldn't have anything without bees. They've also been around. It's super sustainable and super good for the earth. And so I always appreciated bees, and I've always like educated, we don't kill bees in our house, if at all possible. And so that's kind of that. And then how did I work it into the name? Ever is more sustainable. It's long lasting. It's forever. That's what I hear when I think about ever. And it just meant a lot for me. So I appreciate that question. Hopefully it answers it in a clear way.
Nice. Always interesting. And one of those ones that always seems to get, left behind. People don't always ask those questions, right? Good question. Carla bringing the heat. And I'm impressed by the answer. I agree with the bee thing. It's kind of like the
that.
sharks of the ocean, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
The question from my community, and then we'll get into one. George, I know, had a good one from his community too. So I'm going to paste it here so I could show it. It was, what was the first thing I should focus on if I want to make real sales this year? I'll leave that one there.
Who wants to take it?
I think we should probably, can I clarify the question maybe a little bit? Is this an Etsy specific question, or is this like mostly this audience is Etsy? Is that what you guys' feeling as well?
Predominantly, I would say print on demand for the most part, but in this case, it was an Etsy seller who is doing print on demand. So an Etsy seller for starters there. But I think you can, if you want to zoom out and expand it to entrepreneurship or whatever in general, then we can go
I'm
that
going
way.
to say that this will apply no matter what. So say if you have physical business, POD, if you have Shopify, Etsy, whatever, I'm seeing more and more, and I've said it on the last live, that nobody watches how they purchase things and what they're clicking on. For instance, I have this chair that I'm sitting on right now. Why did I have that chair in my cart versus the other ones? And I showed somebody on a live the other day that when you searched it up on Amazon, this chair showed the front of the chair. And I immediately clicked on that and I added it to my cart versus every other one that was showing how cool the chair looks from the back. I don't care what the chair looks like from the back. I cared what it looked like me sitting in it and if it was going to help my back while I was in there. So what we should focus on going forward for this year is you need to see how you're selling stuff and stop just taking a traditional mock-up that literally came from Printify or any POD supplier that you're using, or just create a Fabrica and using the same mock-up that everybody else is using. Think outside the box. Think about something that's going to be engaging, something that's going to attract your buyer. Think about how you're shopping online and what's keeping you, in that listing. What's making you hit that buy now button, add to cart now button, things like that. You really need to start with how you shop yourself and apply that to your own products, because I see it over time and time again that nobody's doing that.
Yeah, that's this goes kind of part and parcel. It's a nice almost segue into what I was thinking too, is nailing down your ideal customer first, right? It's like knowing who you're targeting, but it's also the mock-up that you're going to destroy, or it's like a make or break thing, right? Once you got your design there. But I think it's like knowing exactly who you're targeting, everything else kind of flows from that, right? And we're seeing Etsy in their Q1 financials going through, they talked about how they want to make a more unique experience to that customer. They've kind of already, had tweaks like that. So they're kind of, your search results are going to end up based on geolocation and stuff too, and time of day and previous search history. But now they're introducing for you gift pages, right? So on Etsy, it's that kind of thing. But I think it also transcends, platforms, is like knowing who you're absolutely targeting and then not destroying, a beautiful design or something that you created with, a crappy mock-up or a design, right? Like, I don't know. If it was on the platform, I think this is also platform specific if we're talking about e-commerce, because on Amazon, you want to stand out of millions. On Etsy, you got it, or billions almost. On I think George knew the numbers, right? It was like something like 60 billion. On eBay, 600 million.
100 million, yeah.
Yeah, and then
because that was a couple months ago, so.
Yeah. And then 60-ish million on Etsy. It's like, you need to be able to stand out. And the way to do that is to speak to the customer that you have in mind when you're creating those designs, the listings, the products, right? It's never going to get you anywhere if you're like spraying and praying, right? So I would do that. And then, I would focus on trying to get up a good catalog of quality listings that target that specific customer. You'll at least gather data and run ads to it to gather data in a shorter time. But if you are too spread out and you're targeting 50 niches with 5 different products or something like that, you're going to end up like just literally scattered. And so will your thoughts be, so will your processes. It's all just going to end up with you spinning your wheels. So I would just get focused and cut out the fluff, right? Put the blinders on and get to work kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with all that. I would just add into just like the mindset. You guys covered like a little bit more tactical stuff but also just like the belief. You need to believe fully 100% that it's totally possible for you. And I noticed that a lot of us, we lack this. It's very normal, by the way. It's very human nature to kind of lack that person's crushing it. That's amazing. That's because they're special and I'm not. So one, you need to totally believe that it's possible and totally possible for you. And then you need to reverse engineer the next step, which is, how do I make it probable? How do I make it probable for me? And so that's like, okay, well, the probability goes up if I'm extra focused on one sort of ICP, like the core demographic. Probability goes up when I get better designs, better mockups. Probability goes up when I have more listings, probably just because I get better at what I'm doing and I'm more solutions to the person's problem. Problem goes up if I layer on email marketing. Probability goes up. You just want to kind of like continue to increase that probability of success. That's the way I look at it. So one, possibility, then you need to increase that probability, and eventually you just like keep increasing the probability, and eventually you become successful with whatever you're trying to do. I know that's a little bit more theoretical, but I think that it's a nice touch from all three of us.
Yeah, for sure. And it totally applies, right? Like getting your head around what you're trying to do first, treating it like a business versus treating it like a hobby, right? Perpetually too. Lots of, mindset again a lot of this is going to come back to mindset. You guys will see, I'm sure. George, you had a question there, and then we got a couple in the chat already.
Jay, we don't have the ability. I don't think George and I have the ability to pin them. So you have to do the pinning, I think, on your end.
Yeah, still the other one was related to it. What was that, number 7?
Yeah. So, okay, you can drop it in the chat if you want, and I can pin it if you copy paste. I can do that for this one here if you want. This wasn't verbatim George's community members question, but it was very close, right? What should I do when I launch a product and it just flops? I think your question from your member was along the lines of like, when do I move on from?
Yeah, exactly. That's the big question that everybody wants to know, is how long do you sit there on a dead product? Or how do you even know it's dead? So I answer this one all the time. So I know a lot of people want to hear from you, Jay, on this one, to see your thoughts. And I know that we think very similar, and we're probably going to have the same way, but maybe you relay the message a little different and it could be picked up a little bit more.
I would say the first thing, and this is probably the hardest thing, is just to leave emotion out of it. We get emotionally attached to all the things that we put into a listing, and it's never going to be perfect. So just get it listed, because you can't sell it if it's not live, right? It's just an idea until you've hit that publish button. But if it just flops, like, it's never really truly a failure, right? You can learn from it. Did it get any favorites? If not, why not? Re-examine it, compare it to the best sellers that are ranking out there. Does it honestly hold any water? Does it hold weight? Pull it up in search results. Go ask, we're talking about design and the presentation here. Go ask people in your, in your family or in your house, your vicinity. Pull it up in search results, and don't tell them it's yours, but ask them, like, what are their top 3 or top 5 on that page, right? You really got to get your ego out of the way here, and just let people tell you by asking them. Don't tell them it's yours. And if yours isn't the top 3 or at least in the top 5, then something's wrong with it, right? And it's just being honest with yourself and letting the data speak, because we can get so emotionally attached to things, and it's the same. We see people like investing all this time and then repeating processes. It's like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. But I think if you're doing it over and over and you're not getting results and you're not making money, you're wasting money and you're wasting time, right? I don't know if that was kind of where you were heading with it, George, but I mean, I would focus on, quality, right, above quantity for starters. But
I say the same thing every single time, especially the favorites. If you're getting views and no favorites, nobody's adding it to the cart, something's wrong there, And then if you are getting it, if you're getting too many favorites, it could be 2 things. One is your SEO is too broad, so you're just getting hit by everything. Or 2, it's just, it could be your price that's why they're not, but they'll still add it as a favorite even if the price is high. So it not being favorited there's something wrong with that item, whether it's the design or whatnot. You have to re-strategize and think. And we don't know what customers want. We don't know what they want until they actually start purchasing or favoriting more and more. So your design, you can launch 3 designs that look identical to you, but to the consumer, they look completely different, and they choose one. And I always use the, with my old shop, I had 20 different designs that to me, it was poppy flowers. All 20 designs looked the same to me, but 2 were the biggest sellers. The other 18, they were horrible. They didn't make any money, and I got rid of them. But either way, it made no sense to me because to me, they all look the same. So it was weird. It's just how, consumers see things, and we just have to go by the data and what the data says. And I believe if you have enough traffic, you can do it within 30 days. If you don't have enough traffic, you have to wait probably 60 to 90 to get a good, idea of what direction that design's going in. But the faster, like you said, no emotion, get rid of it as soon as you can and just keep on building. Just only have winners in your shop.
Yeah, I don't have much to add there. You guys covered it, but I would say the last thing I would say is, what should you do when you launch a product and it flops? Keep going. I mean, you just don't stop. Right? I would first change the expectation that every product that you launch is going to be successful. You just don't really know. You're going to have products. You're going to have thousands of products, and the majority of them are going to fail over your career of selling anything. So don't expect that to be any different. It's the Pareto principle of 80-20, right? The majority of your revenue is going to come from 20% of your products. So just don't stop creating them, and don't stop iterating and making them better. That's the main thing. Yeah, the Pareto rule.
Yeah, and data does not lie. Data does not lie. I say it all the time. Everybody else will lie to you. Data will not lie to you.
And this, got one more question here that kind of ties on that, and I can go into some that I started here from people in the chat today too. But it kind of ties on that. The data doesn't lie, and this kind of segues here. Like, how do I balance making what I love versus what actually sells? Like, there was a point where I got into doing this because it was an outlet for me, that doing something I love, which was, designing and putting on shirts. I was airbrushing t-shirts as a kid in high school, right? And like writing graffiti and stuff. So hustling shirts out of a backpack on my BMX kind of thing. It's always kind of been something I wanted to do. I was emotionally attached to a lot of the designs that I wanted to do, but they weren't what people wanted. And as soon as I was, realized that I need to make what people actually want to buy in order to actually, make a viable, real business out of this, then there ended up being not much love for, making what I love versus what actually sells. I love designing. So that was, you got to fall in love with the parts that you enjoy in creating things that actually, proverbially move that needle, right? You need to find a way to love making things that what actually sells, if that makes sense. So it's not about, you know what I mean? Like, I love graphic design. So for me, I love designing in my style, right? But at the end of the day, that wasn't always going to make me money. It will in a very small pocket, but it's not something that I'd be able to, blow up and really make full-time money at, I don't think, without, years of branding. Then it's like, how do I you just follow the data. Like, this conversation is going to lead to a lot of that, I think, too, but follow the data, make what sells, and then find part of that process that you can fall in love with. I think that was kind of where I was going.
I completely agree. I remember having a conversation with my wife years ago, before Everbee, but it was actually like in our e-commerce, really in our era of Amazon FBA, and then Etsy, and then building our own website and stuff like that. And I remember just having this conversation. And if you could be in a business to where, one, like it's like one, it makes money, right? You can make money at, and then 2, you enjoy it, and 3, it actually serves other people and actually helps the world in some way. You literally have found the trifecta. You found the unicorn, and your job is to run through that and like explode that thing for you. And the beautiful thing about it, why it's the trifecta, is because it's something that you don't have to stop doing. There's never a next thing. There's never a next chapter, right? So like a lot of us, we have these ideas of, I'm going to build this business to get to this milestone, and then I'm going to do this. Finally, I'll be able to do this. It's going to unlock something like this. But it's like, but if you could actually turn whatever you're doing now into that thing, into this, you never have to stop. And that's where like the real money and the real life freedom all really kicks in, when you're doing something that you love, makes money, and it helps people. It's a beautiful thing. So you're not going to find that yet right away when you first start. You have to like go through things, but just know that like you're kind of searching for that. Keep searching for that. Keep searching for that. That's my opinion on this.
Yeah, that's a great take. Like, I don't even, that to me, like it just got zoomed out, and now, this print on demand thing started, as print on demand, but then it got into, the YouTube and the coaching and then everything, and then doing these kinds of things to help as many people as possible. And I forget the word for it, like you were saying, but there was like, there's a Japanese word for it, and it has 4 strings and they're all kind of tied, right? And it's a name that it's like doing all of those things. It's something you love, something that helps people, something that makes money. Also, there is a term for it, and then there's a 4th bit that I can't think of right now, but it's that same kind of thing, right? Like, I just feel like the more people, I didn't know that helping as many people as possible get from A to Z, or get from 0 to step 1 even, would be as fulfilling as it was. So that ended up being, a little bit of Muskogee. Is that it? Maybe, I'm not sure. Yeah. But we got lots of questions in here. These are great. So let's start with from the chat today, because of respect for you guys showing up. Yang Chen, if I'm pronouncing correctly, I hope. How many times have you guys had a bestseller that you almost didn't post because you thought the design sucked?
All of my bestsellers were the ones that I thought the design sucked. They took off. It made no sense to me. Those are the majority. I would say probably 80% of the ones I said, well, this one's never going to sell, is the one that did sell. And the one that I really had high hopes for was the one that just fell short every single time, at least 80% of the time. So I never held back anything on launching those. I was very baffled, though, I'll tell you that. And I still am baffled even today on why some designs take off more than other ones. You could spend 3 hours on one design and you think, it's going to have high hopes, it's going to take off, and nothing happens. It's the same thing with YouTube videos. You spend all this time on something and it just doesn't take off the way that you expect it to. And then one that's just random that you put thought into it still, but just not as much as you did with the other one, and it just takes off. It's the same concept. It's really weird. It's just how consumers see things and like it. So don't hesitate on dropping a design if you think it sucks or doesn't suck. Drop everything and let the consumers decide.
Yeah. Crazy. I don't know how many times have I had a bestseller that I didn't. I don't know if there's any that I didn't post, because, I learned very early that it's just get it up there when I think it's done. If there's a demand for it and I'm following the data, and yeah, you guys say data, I say data, maybe it's a Canadian thing, but if I'm following that, right, I'm not normally diving into an area or a niche that I don't think there's any reason for me to go into. And I've kind of been sticking with more of the same for a very long time, like 10 years plus now. So I know I have a very good inclination that when I list something, there's at least a 50-50 shot that somebody's going to buy it, right? Within that first week, there is an 80% chance that somebody's going to buy it in the next 12 months. That's the kind of thing I look for, right? So I don't try to make designs or idea or list things that aren't going to work. My very first merch by Amazon design, coincidentally, was a fishing flag, kind of American flag thing. And it was a mistake. I did it on a white background, even though I know better. It went on a black shirt, and I forgot to delete the distressing, so create holes in the design. It looks like crap, and it's been, selling steadily for like 7 years. So it is what it is, right? It's had a few bestseller badges. So let that be the moral of the story, if nothing else, right?
Yeah, and then you just stare at the screen going, I don't know what they're seeing in this.
It looks like crap. It still looks like crap. 7 years later, it's not grown on me, but I'm not deleting it because, now there's a ton of copy. Yeah. Now there's a million copycats. Yeah. Go figure, right? Quick question from my community. Amy is like, what exactly is your corner? So George, like, to my community, I, neglected to introduce you, but give us a little bit of bio for the folks from my end who might not know who you are.
So my name is George McConnell. I've always been an entrepreneur ever since I was young. I started selling things when I was in the 3rd grade, failed multiple times. I pushed myself to, get into the corporate world, which I luckily landed a job with Samsung, worked for them for 10 years. Then I worked for Sharp for 5 years, helped build tons of systems. Anything that you see on Samsung, I pretty much was involved in, application-wise, TV-wise, phone-wise, tablet-wise, et cetera. And in 2019, I had multiple business, but 2018, I had a cell phone business that wasn't really making the amount of money I wanted. I took the leather from the cell phone business, dropped it on Etsy, and it took off. And from there, I've been doing this ever since. I replaced my full-time income within 6 months, quit my job, and now I have multiple stores on Etsy, as well as, some different things. I also have a consulting company. I'm trying to get into real estate. That one's going to be a little bit difficult, but that's something that's probably not going to be this year, probably not even next year. But eventually, you have to have those long-term goals. So hopefully that comes about soon. I have to figure that one out. But either way, that's my story. That's a shorter version.
I have a question for you, George. Maybe other people are curious too. Why is entrepreneurship? I mean, you had the corporate world. Like, why entrepreneurship? Like, what was the big thing for you that drew you to this, and why do you do it? It is challenging. We all know. Everyone is here, and everyone understands how hard it is. We also understand the upsides, but why did you do it? Why do you do it?
I wanted freedom. I wanted to do whatever the fuck I wanted. That's literally that's it right there. I mean, I don't come for anything. Anybody that watched my story, I posted it. I started watching myself at the age of 7. I had nobody, and entrepreneurship is a lonely road. Nobody's going to understand who you are. Luckily, me growing up alone, it was perfectly fine for me, and I can handle that. Some people can't, but I just wanted the freedom to tell people, fuck off if I wanted to, and just get on a plane and go wherever I wanted. And even though I got to do a lot with the corporate world, that held me back. Nobody in my family has ever graduated high school except for me. Nobody went to college, which I didn't finish college because I couldn't afford it, but I did get to go to some classes. Nobody worked in a corporate environment except for me. Nobody had a brand new car. Generational. I have everything that I've ever accomplished except for that freedom until now. And I have that freedom that I can do anything except I want to help and give back. So most of my freedom is spent on YouTube or in my community, giving back as much as I can to help others achieve it. Because if I want, I could do this wherever. I could jump on a plane with my laptop and still teach. And that's what I really want to do. So it's just the freedom.
Love that. Yeah, thanks for that. I agree. It's something that I think is important because everyone here is probably pretty similar to you, what your story, in that way, that we're all chasing kind of the same thing. The way that I talk about it is in my head and to my family is like there's three main things of freedom. It's like time freedom, location freedom, and financial freedom. And it kind of iterates from there. It actually is going to more in spiritual freedom. Like there's other things too that I'm realizing now as I get older. But I agree. It's totally same thing for me. I wanted to do what I want, when I want, and with whoever the hell I want to do it with. And I want to be able to say no whenever I want, which the cool thing about it is that when you have the freedom to do that, you actually want to be so generous with all of your time and all of your money and all this other stuff too, which is so cool. But then it's our choice though to do that now. And that's why freedom is so important. It's a special thing. And I really want that for everybody here too, because I know that I was in this comments, 5 or 6 years ago too, watching other people talk about this stuff. And it really is as cool as you're thinking it could be. It's not perfect. Nothing's perfect, but it's really fucking cool. And it's very worth it. So just keep going on the path.
It is really fucking cool. Absolutely. It's indescribable too. When it's not about, for me, making millions and millions. It's about being able to do what I want, when I want. And like you said, with who you want, right? That at the end of the day is kind of my definition of like immediate success for me. That means that, like, what else is there? If you can do what you want, when you want, with the people you want, right? Like, what more is there that you could ever want other than being able to do something on your own schedule or timeline and not be stuck to somebody else's, right?
And like Cody said, I mean, that's the crazy part is you have all the freedom. Like, we could do whatever we wanted right now. We can literally maybe jump on a plane all hang in Belize, but instead we sit here and we help people, and that's what makes us happy. So it's like, that is a huge part that we can do it. But I mean, this is what makes us happy, and that's so important that we get to do something that makes us happy every day. Yeah.
It's actually interesting because it's selfish. We're doing this because it makes us happy. And yes, it is helping other people. But it's also like, I actually get so much enjoyment from this. So it's actually like doing this for myself or for them. Like, I don't really know, but it's kind of a little twist, but it's either way, it's all good for the world. So it's cool.
I'm gonna start one here. Yeah, these are great questions, by the way, folks. And Cody, I wanted to ask you, what was your what did you do before getting into Everbee?
So my story was graduated college, I was like, I'm going to go and get a full-time job because all my family were in the blue collar work, like contractors. And I just saw the downsides of entrepreneurship. I saw fucking everyone just struggle. No health insurance. There's no 401ks. There was only complaining about money, not necessarily an abundance of money, but they're entrepreneurs. But they had freedom, time, I guess, some sort of freedom. So I only saw all the downsides. And at that point, financial downsides. At that point, I'm like, I know that I want to be very successful. I know I want to make a lot of money, and I'm going to solve all these problems with money. These are just money. That's a money problem. I was pretty young when I started realizing like, that's a money problem. Oh, that's just a money problem. Oh, that's a mindset problem, but like, that's a money problem over there. And so I knew I was going to be successful financially at some point doing something. And my path with that was corporate career. I was going to go make $100,000 a year corporate, and I was going to get health insurance and have a 401k. And that was my level of success that I was going for first. And then you start realizing quickly, like after you put on a suit and tie for a year, you're like, wow, okay, this is not, I now understand. So I started reading books, financial freedom books. Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad was the major impact. Napoleon Hill, Outwitting the Devil was very important. Think and Grow Rich, very, very important. And that's when my entrepreneurship really kicked in, around 23 years old. At that point, I knew that I was going to start a real estate investment company. And so that's what my wife and I did. We started flipping and buying out-of-state properties and in-state properties in San Diego, California. Then move over to e-commerce. That's when e-commerce career started, and started selling Amazon FBA, eBay, everything drop shipping. Like I was trying to figure it out online, just like a lot of us here. Eventually found Etsy, and had like a lot of, I ran with Etsy, kind of like George, your story, very similar. Like as soon as we put our product on Etsy, we like started to like really scale, and it was really cool. But I was working at a tech company the whole time during all of this. And so I knew that I was starting to fall in love with tech more and more, and the internet more and more, and e-commerce more and more. And so that's when we kind of like married all those things. And that's where kind of Everbee was created, I would say.
Do you still do real estate?
Do we still what?
Do you still do the real estate?
We own like our personal house. We sold. So I guess the Everbee funding story and the Everbee starting story is another topic that I never really talked about, but we actually sold every piece of our real estate, including our personal home, to start Everbee.
I got all excited. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to have to talk after this.
Yeah, totally. Like real estate was my first entrepreneurial love.
I rent out some properties, but I don't know like where even the first step to go, and I don't have to.
Oh, yeah, we could totally talk about that. Yeah, totally. Yeah, we used to own. We've done a lot like flips and then holding. We've done like the Burr strategy. I've actually purchased land and then like sold a note and like carried notes on things. So yeah, it was fun.
That's awesome.
Interesting. We bought a half acre down here in Belize on this kind of boutique island that we're on about 4 years ago. And it's just one of those things. So we got a house that we're renting out. For me, just getting my feet wet into real estate. Haven't done nearly what you guys have or getting into potentially. We are renting out our house in Ontario. We got a full-time tenant there. And luckily, knock on wood, it's been majority issue free. And then we don't have the scratch at the moment, or at least I don't think I do, because there's logistics here on a tiny island. We have to barge even the equipment in to make the builds, right? So you can't even grow a garden here unless you barge in soil from like the mainland, because it's a rock and coral island. So the logistics of that like just don't allow for the cash flow. And that's kind of what Carla was commenting on, right? Is like cash flow is king. But it's like one of those things where we're looking to be able to put up like rental units on our, on that half acre, right? Because the things here are small. It's a boutique island. The island just south of us is like, I mean, you're looking at $4 million an acre with like a 1-bedroom studio condo on it, right? So it's like that kind of, and it's a tinier island than ours. It's probably end to end. It's like a mile by a half mile, and we're only 3 by 1. So all that overflow here with PGA pro golf kind of course. It's a golf course on an island surrounded by houses, to put it, so all that overflow is going to come here. All the things that I'm, wheels turning, but want to capitalize on it. But
yeah, that sounds just like a dream. I mean, to be honest with you. So
yeah. I'll say this too, for anybody like listening to this, I know this because I was doing this 5 years ago when people started talking about real estate. I kind of like started thinking about maybe I should be in real estate. Like everyone else is in real estate. I would say this, I didn't know this. So please listen to me on this, at least consider it. Don't invest in real estate before you build your business. Build the business, and the business will fund every real estate deal you ever want to buy, anything you want to buy. But if you buy the real estate too soon, because you're attracted to like the cash flow, if you do it too soon, it sucks all your cash and it does suck up all your time. You get to say like you're cool because you own a piece of real estate, but like it's not that cool because you still don't have the life freedom, time freedom, financial freedom, because usually it's only like a 10% cash on cash return. So build the business first. It's the best asset you can build right now with your time. And the business will eventually take care of all of your real estate wants. That's my experience, at least. I did the opposite at first. It sucked away probably 5 years of my time. I don't regret it, but I'm saying I did delay some of the stuff. I should have built the business first.
I 100% agree with that, especially, when you diversify, you have different things going on. One part of the income that I have will pay for the house. The other income pays for cars, other income pays for vacation, so on and so forth. That's so important, because then if one fails, you still have income and then you just transfer it around. But if you have everything just stuck in one, you're going to fail, because you're just going to be thinking too hard or trying to push too much. You need that extra money from somewhere.
And businesses are great. I mean, like, man, like I know some of us are starting a business here. Some of us have successful businesses in the chat and stuff too. But your business, like whatever you think is possible, it's way more. The market's huge. E-commerce is huge. Internet is huge. Like, and you only need one product to really fucking blow the whole thing up, and your life changes.
I just want to say really quick, sorry to interrupt you, Cody, is everybody listening to us right now? Yes, we built things. It didn't take one day. It didn't take a year. It took multiple years. So as you listen to Cody, as you listen to Jay, as you listen to myself, and we're talking like this high end, because we're just learning still, even right now, right? I want to learn real estate. So obviously Cody started talking about real estate, and that's how we got into this conversation. But just because you see the success that we have, don't think that it came like easy, and don't think that it came overnight. It's built over time of those lessons of failure. So just everybody out there listening, just remember that, it's wherever you're starting right now, you'll get there. It just takes time. It's not as immediate as many people make it seem.
Yeah. And I would argue that you need to build that foundation first to be able to build on it, to build a sustainable business, right? Stop chasing, the fast cash. Like to George's point in the last call we were on, if you're chasing cash, you're never going to catch it. Something to that effect, right? It's always going to outrun you. You're going to need to build something that you can build on top of, right? Kind of a great segue into the next question we had here is like, so Cody saying, it only takes one listing, but like in Marianella's case here, how do you choose a good mock-up for your design? I'll let you guys field that one. I know both of you got something to say on that.
So does it stop you from scrolling? That's the biggest thing. People are scrolling a lot faster these days. Back in the day, it was 3 to 5 seconds, and now it's about, I think it was 2.3, and now it's supposed to be 1.7. So scroll wise, 1.7 as they're scrolling through on their cell phone. 70% of people on Etsy use their cell phone, whether it's on the application or their mobile browser. So you have literally less than 2 seconds to stop somebody. And if your mock-up doesn't stop somebody or blends in with everybody else's mock-up, you're going to lose them.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have anything to add.
Yeah. I would argue, it's the same thing. It's got to interrupt, but it has to make sense for the design too. So think of like your niche, right? Like in that case, it definitely needs to stand out in a crowded marketplace. Absolutely. It also needs to be something that identifies with your ideal customer. So like, this isn't an example, but it's just to get you thinking that way. You wouldn't put a #1 dad shirt on a old lady, right? Where, you know what I mean? Like the mock-up needs to match. And then in a more practical application, you wouldn't put something like, new dad or dad established 2025 on, a guy who looks like he's 60 with 2 grandkids or whatever, newborns, right? He's not a new dad. He's a new grandfather maybe, right? So just make it make sense, right? Because you can totally tank your design if you put off a customer too. So like if you were getting into politics, for example, and you were, leaning one way and you put it on the wrong color shirt, for example, you could totally, not only will you sabotage that listing, but you're going to alienate both sets of customers and appeal to none at the end of the day. Hope that makes sense.
No, that's a great example, because yesterday I was telling somebody they were Gothic. Gotham Witch is like huge this year, and their mock-up was just a basic mock-up from Printify, and so it was like this, white girl, and it wasn't edgy, right? So I went on Creative Fabrica or Creative Fabrica, however you want to pronounce it, and I found one that had like this edgier look that they could download. Then we went to Creative Market and found one there that had that edgier look of a person that's like goth style. So if you put that, like you were saying, if you mix that, that's your design with the actual, person that should be wearing it, you'll stand out much faster than just a traditional, vanilla type of mock-up.
For sure. It's the way you can separate yourself from being like an imposter, right? Versus somebody who actually, is in the niche or the know, right? You want to buy from somebody ultimately that you feel you're going to have a connection with or resonate with, right? Like everybody wants to connect with your brand story at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So another question here was a decent one, I think. What are the best ways to list for POD, as in SEO, title tags, description? And what about videos of images on listings? So getting a little more technical here.
I mean, that goes into, there's a lot, but I'll try to cover it real quick. Title wise, it should match exactly what the picture is within the first 30 characters. You can do up to 60 on the app, but the first 30 characters are the most important. It should match exactly what that picture is. SEO wise, what are people searching up? If they're not, you're writing just some random keywords that you think people are going to hit, would they really actually search those keywords? Think about how they're searching for that product. And, Jay made a great point the other day, like not the other day, a couple minutes ago, saying, give your phone to somebody and have them search up something, not specifically saying it's your product, just a product in general, to see how they're actually searching, what keywords they're using, and then use those keywords for your actual listing. As far as the description, if you are on Etsy, the first 3 sentences are the most important. And that's because Google uses those 3 sentences to list things. That's their SEO. That's how they really push things. And as everybody knows, that Etsy pushes things offsite ads. So it's very important. And videos will stop you every single time. That's why TikTok took off the way it did.
Agree. Next question.
Yeah, totally agree. Use, and if you're struggling for words, don't just keyword stuff, use words that people would actually use to type in a search bar, right? Like, yeah. Next question. Jay, does your membership include mindset and best practices for business along with design? Absolutely. Mindset is kind of like always worked in or baked into almost everything. Ultimately, I'll explain it like this as quick as I can. It's the whys behind the hows, right? So I'm going to teach you how to do all the things design wise, why typography matters, why the color choices matter, why the fonts matter, why, the branding, the cohesion, all that matters. That's part and parcel with the mindset. But yeah, all of it for sure. Not to dwell there. Thanks for the question. And we are going to be opening very soon. Actually, we had this June 23rd date, but it looks like we're going to be open in a couple of days, ideally. So definitely get on the wait list. I'll drop a link below, after this is all said and done. You can go to jaysway.works, though, if you want to get on the wait list quicker. Scott says, do you find that others buy designs because you sold some and others feel like that one is the one they should buy? Example here would be popular equals likes.
That depends on
the others buy.
I know what they're saying. So say if it's like a popular now button or whatnot, do you think that people are going to gravitate towards it? And in some cases they do, because it's like that FOMO effect, like, or, well, I have to hurry up and get it. It's kind of like running the sales, scarcity, things like that. So it does sometimes, but it only depends if it resonates with that actual consumer. So
Yeah, so I would say that that's more, you can't really control that. So it doesn't really, you don't spend too much time thinking about that and worrying about it so much because it's not something you can control. It's beautiful if you got it. It's like a bestseller badge, right? It's like cool if you got it. It's going to give you some momentum, but you can't really like optimize. You can't ask Etsy to like give you that bestseller badge all the time. So
yeah, and then also point it to the right people each and every single time too. So like,
but yeah, I'm sure it
Yeah.
has effects. That's why they do it.
The fastest way you can even expedite that and know too, because ultimately it's, again, going back to data, is just run ads to it. And if you'll fail quicker, which will give you more data sooner, and you can, make better versions of it faster.
I'm curious if for,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, you go ahead. I was going to ask,
say,
I'll ask the next question after this.
What do you do when you have a lot of favorites, but no sale on a listing?
make a similar design.
Make 2 or 3 more different, but not overwhelmed. Don't do 10 more just
Keep
because somebody, more in the vein that your shop or niche should be looking for, right? Try a different A/B test or ABC test too, right? You could try a different mock-up. You could try, and this is only changing one item in that, right? And a true A/B test is not changing the title and mock-up on this one. It's just changing one thing. So change, maybe 1 or 2 keywords, maybe change a mock-up, maybe change a color in the design, like, the color spectrum or whatever. But don't change a bunch of things on your second one, or you'll never really be able to pinpoint. But if you don't, you're stuck on time, just try and experiment with 1 or 2 more.
The big thing is, we can both answer this literally with just one sentence, and that should show everybody it's very simple. It's that we overthink things, so when you're seeing favorites, you start overthinking it. Don't overthink it. It's us that causes our failure 99% of the time because we're overthinking things. It's a very simple fix.
Yes. Cody, you had something you were going to say.
I'm curious if, just for anybody here, if they drop their comments of what are you struggling with right now? Like, what's the thing that's holding you back, you think, from your next level of success at the moment? We can kind of answer those things too in the last 10 minutes. Is something, what are you struggling with? You're just like, if I knew this, or if I unlocked this, then it's really going to unlock me. Maybe you don't know. Maybe somebody do know. Some of you do know though.
Also, everybody that's using Everbee right now, drop an emoji inside the comment section.
Oh, damn.
If you're not using Everbee, then you're losing out.
Then why
Shameless.
not?
I know. I use it nonstop, so you better be using it. Or else
first to market with the Chrome extension, I'm a sucker. I confess, I don't do a ton of deep diving in Everbee proper because of the information that your Chrome extension gives me. I don't have to do anything else.
Talking about like the listing insights, like when we show it right there on listing.
Yeah, it's
cool.
It's everything. It's everything to me because I like to, a lot of it. You get to a certain point where you kind of lead with your gut, right? But then having the numbers there just to validate my gut shots on this stuff, right? That's it. That's all I need, and it works brilliantly for that because I'm not leaving to go somewhere else or into another tool or copying, pasting some keywords to search, whatever, man. It's right there. It's perfect.
It took us a while to do that. Yeah, I'm surprised that we didn't do that earlier on, but we just didn't really. Yeah, I'm happy that you're getting good feedback there. So thanks for that.
Oh yeah, Chrome extensions for days. That's it, man. Let me do what I need to do with like a little bit of peripheral, right? But without leaving the focus. That's
the big thing. What's really great, especially with Etsy, is Etsy will push certain things, and they really actually suck. They don't get any sales, but they're just
Etsy's picks.
Yes. And then Everbee will literally give you the data, be like, nope, this isn't making it. And so many people fall into that thinking, okay, well, this is making money and that's the target audience I need to go after, or that's the design I need to go after. With Everbee, you're able to see, well, this hasn't made a single sale in 6 months. It's just Etsy trying to like test things, So having that type of data and information is so important because it keeps you on track on where you're supposed to, go.
Yeah, I think people too I think the cool thing about it, it's never going to be perfect, 100%. It's just to be really clear, we're not saying that our data, Etsy's data is our data. It's our own algorithm, but it's pretty damn good. I feel like we've been refining it for the last 4 years. But the main thing is just like, you need to just be kind of right. That's the cool thing about like e-commerce is that you just have to be kind of right. So if something says it's making $10,000 a month it could be making 20,000 and it could be making like 7,000. But the cool thing about it is like, who cares? That's freaking good. And we just like go run with it. It only takes one product to like really break it all open for you. So that's the cool thing, that's the way my mindset works, at least.
Well, I will say, when you were in beta version, it said that I made $50 million and I liked it. And then you fixed it and it doesn't say that anymore. So I took a screenshot.
That's hilarious.
Nice. That's great. I wish I had taken a screenshot.
I was like, yes, I did.
Damn right. FRB says so. Cody, to answer your question, what people are struggling with, this is a good one. I know, not just a good one, but it's a popular one. I'm struggling to keep consistency when I have not been able to scale. How do you stay motivated? How do you guys stay motivated? For me, it goes right back to my why, right? Why did I leave that corporate toxic BS culture that wanted me to, do things and say things that I normally wouldn't have, and turn me into a piece of shit, really? You know what I mean? It's just to cope. That's how I stay consistent, right? Like, I remember that stuff. And if you can't scale, then it's just about, zooming out a little bit. I would probably, look more at your niche and see if you can kind of dive a little bit deeper or zoom out before you start going laterally, right? Don't just add a bunch of products. Don't just try to attack different niches. Pick the one that you had some that maybe you're finding kind of like that stagnancy, and see what you can do or tweak or, revisit what's missing in the marketplace. You hear people say like find gaps in the market. What does that mean? It means, finding things. So maybe it's all the big dogs are being served out there, but there's a big, massive hole for Great Danes. My wife created a shop specifically for Great Danes and then expanded that to all large breeds, right? So there's different ways to kind of expand, but like ideally, if you can identify what's missing out there, and if it's something that you're passionate about, it's not always the be all end all here, but it's always a great place to start.
I would say the consistency thing too. Everybody goes through this, by the way. Every single entrepreneur goes through consistency. So just understand that you're not alone. And the thing, you just have to figure out what works for you. But I'll tell you my experience. When you're starting a new business, you have lots of things to do, but then you don't really know what to do next. So it's like you end up doing nothing kind of with your time, even though you have a million things to do. So what you want to do is you want to just like carve out time and like block it. You could time block this, whatever you want to call this. But for me, what I did is I'm like, hey, I'm going to be in the office talking to my wife here. Like we're connecting on this. And I'm like, I'm going to be in the office, even though I don't know what to necessarily work on at this moment. I'm going to be in the office from this time to this time every single day, 7 days a week or 5 days a week, whatever your schedule is with kids or whatever it is. But the point is like, you need to go and sit there, and you need to sit there, and like, that's your consistent schedule. So first, before you have consistency in your business, you need to have consistent schedule and time, focus on it. So step one, like get your schedule right. It could be 1 hour, 30 minutes. It doesn't matter as long as it's consistent. And then also thinking about scaling, probably don't think about scale yet. Think about just getting the foundation set. Scale is when you're like, I'm pouring ads on it. And the more money I put into it, the more money I make. And I know you're talking about scaling listings and stuff like that probably, but maybe don't worry about that so much this exact moment. Just try to like get the system rolling.
Yeah, there is such a thing as scaling too fast. And I did that with my business in 2019, opening up 3 warehouses very quickly. That was scaling way too fast. So it put me back actually, and I had to regain that. So you can scale too fast. So just like Cody said, take it easy, take it simple, and overview of everything that everybody said is perfect. I just want to one up it with a high level of like knowing when to time block, right? You always have to think about your why, like have a good why, because then that's going to give you that more time when the days that you are like, I don't want to work, or I don't want to, do these 5 hours that I promised myself that every day I'm going to, put into this business. Think of your why. And if your why is, the bigger your why is, the more you're going to actually put into that business, and you will be consistent because of that why. And I don't mean a why such as I want to quit my job, or I want to, have freedom, or I want to make more money. That's not enough. You need more. You need something like, I want generational wealth. I want to give something to my children's children, things like that. That's a why. So, that's a higher level of it, but that will also help with that consistency, because it will help you motivate you to always have those time blocks.
That's awesome. And this kind of piggybacks on that too, is like now having to work even harder to get the wheel turning. Was doing good before this month, but now not so much, I guess. Strategies have shop showing would be great. So strategies for showing up more, but like understand first. Let's address the I'm having a bad month. That's nothing. People have bad months, bad weeks, over and over and over. Businesses have bad quarters. Businesses have bad years, right? All it does is give them more data. Something's changed in the market. They pivot. They figure out what it is. They understand the data and digest it, and then learn where they can pivot, right? You're not going to just shift entirely over here. You're going to pivot a little bit to understand where you need to kind of aim, right? You're just kind of resetting and reloading. Use the downtimes to kind of reassess what you're doing. Don't continue on the same path if it's, month 2, month 3, month 4, and nothing's picking back up, right? But a bad month could just be, oh man, so many things. Could be a weather pattern, could be a delivery disruption that gave you, going back, gave you 3 bad reviews in a row that put off certain customers that then, made Etsy stop showing your stuff in search results a little bit more than they normally would have slowed because other people have picked up. There's so many little organic bits, right? The best thing you can do is worry about what you can't control to that end. But George, what do you guys think?
Definitely don't also compare yourself to others. I hate when other people are like, well, this business is doing this and this business is doing that. You don't really know behind the scenes on what they're going through, And if you're always looking at somebody else's yard, yeah, their yard is green because they're only staring at their yard. They're not, looking at yours. You're not watering yours because you're staring at theirs. So, some months do have, downfalls. Some years have downfalls, quarters, all that stuff happens. Just keep your head down and keep pushing forward and don't care about what anybody else is doing.
I agree with this. I think that we need to think about, when you think about business, you really need like 2 things to make it a successful business, right? You need a product that people want to buy. And then you need to repeat the sales process. That's literally the only thing. We need to simplify business sometimes. It's not like we could go all tags and descriptions and all that stuff. Yes, totally. But really what it comes down to is like, you need a product, you need someone to buy the product, and you just need to repeat that cycle. So, and that's called a flywheel, right? And so that what I'm hearing with Julianne here is like, she's having to work harder to get the wheel turning. So the wheel was turning, it sounds like, but in last month, but then it's kind of like slowed down. And this is an example of like, you got the first part working, but then you're kind of relying on a marketplace to always feed you. And which is beautiful. I love marketplaces. I love Etsy, I love Amazon, love all these things, but you are playing in someone else's sandbox and you're relying on them to feed you traffic, feed you customers. And so eventually you need to go into the mindset of like, how do I own my own thing? So you can own your own freedom and have the peace of mind that you're not feeling like my wheel turned, like my water shut off. Well, it's better to just like own the well, and so that's where like you need to probably eventually build your own store, your own website. You could use Shopify, Wix, Squarespace, and Everbee Store is just releasing, soon. It's not quite out to everybody yet, but the point is like your problem is a real problem, and you need to actually eventually move into building your own flywheels, not just relying on marketplace traffic.
I love that. And also, the same sense goes into just because you had a top seller 3 years ago doesn't mean that top seller is going to be the same top seller this 3 years in now. So many people, they make one item and expect that that's all they'll need for the rest of their life. So same thing, like exactly what you said right there. It just hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, you nailed something else too, George. Just because you had a bestseller 3 years ago or whatever doesn't mean you've cracked the nut on the recipe either, right? You had one bestseller 3 years ago. What have you done in the next 3 years to kind of replicate what worked, right? Analyze that one listing and figure out what worked. What was that bestseller? Why did it work? If there's a lot more to just kind of, flash in the pan. Was it luck? Was it pure luck? Was it something that a trend that maybe you can kind of extrapolate some of that data again and put it over here now with like a trending, new motif or new aesthetic or something, right? There's always something to glean from everything, but don't keep doing if something tanks, don't keep doing the same thing, right? I think so. We are already at an hour here, but let's try to rip through some questions here if you guys are cool with that. The Etsy mentor school community already know George's answer, but curious to know, Jay or Cody, feel about copycats or people who just copy bestsellers or other people's designs?
Oh yeah, I released a video talking about it to all my community, saying don't worry about them. Like they'll just to give you guys an overview if you didn't see the video, and anybody watching the video, I launched it just for my community. That said, copycats will always be behind because they're always going to be chasing what you put out. You are months ahead, even years ahead. They're going to be staring at you nonstop while you have something that they don't have, is that creativity and that mindset to continuously expand. So
Yeah, I didn't watch your video on that, George, but I was about to say the same exact thing of like, I don't worry about stuff like that. You shouldn't worry about this stuff either. It's a scarcity mindset to worry about this too much. We all about abundance mindsets. And this is just, it's just part of the game. It's part of the competitiveness. People are going to do this. Happens at every sports. People copy each other, training programs. Like you're always going to have this. Now, with that being said, what they can't really copy is your relationship with your customer. So this kind of goes back to eventually you want to have that relationship with your customer where you're like, I'm not just trying to sell at every store here. What I'm saying is like, eventually you need to have that relationship where they actually rely, they know George, they know Jay, they know Cody, they know Mike. And that's really what they care about. And you find ways to beat copycats all day. So true brands don't worry about copycats. That's what we're trying to build here.
Totally agree. Well, first, it's kind of twofold, right? But first, like, just worry about the shit you can control. You can never not stop people from copying your stuff. Putting a watermark on it just makes your listing look ugly in most cases, right? There's branding and then there's tactful branding, right? Or tasteful, but there's not a way to stop people from stealing your designs and doing all that. If you're not going to pursue this stuff legally and go after them with trademark infringement and stuff like that, don't worry about it. All you're going to do is get depressed on it, and you can go down these rabbit holes. And I've gone down the rabbit holes, like 3,000 plus emails sent out for, cease and desist letters. It's not cheap. It's time consuming, and it didn't make me money at the end of the day. It wasted time and money. People who just copy bestsellers, to George's point, is probably my next biggest point, is that they're always going to be chasing and riding coattails. They're never going to be the ones. You've got the sales velocity. You got the bestseller badge. They're not going to overtake you all of a sudden. They're copying your design. So they're doing something that is very similar, if not the exact same to yours, except you've got the sales velocity and you got, the algorithmic juju, if you want to call it, right? Yours is working. You've got the reviews ideally now, right? They're never going to be able to overtake you. I got bestsellers out there. Like I said, my crappiest design ever was the first one I listed accidentally on Amazon Merch. It's still got a bestseller badge. It still sells. There's literally, I think, 8,000 or 9,000 copies of it, and none of them have overtaken me. It just doesn't matter, right? Ultimately, all of those bestsellers and every single evergreen design at the same time will have, yes, we say evergreen, like it's never going to run out of style. It's going to stay green year round like the trees. Even evergreen designs have a shelf life. They will expire at some point. There will be a new iteration of something. That is different than somebody copying you, right? That is somebody taking inspiration from your design. Call it, Austin Kleon's book, Steal Like an Artist. They're improving on it. They're iterating on it in a way that is new, incorporating a new aesthetic, maybe some new trend, maybe a TikTok kind of, meme that you can kind of twist into adding to that design. They're adding a unique kind of value that is now better than yours. That just ups the bar. Now you go back to work and make something better, right? So loaded question, Mike, but it's one of those things that
I'll tell you one thing. If you're riding in a Range Rover, you're not thinking about Hyundai trying to copy you, which they continuously have been trying to do for years. So look at it that way. Range Rover isn't thinking about Hyundai and neither are the people that are driving in the Range Rover.
Another good question here. Jamil, should you turn ads on all your products or only the ones that sell?
Only the ones that sell.
Yep, I absolutely echo that. If you get to a point where something will sell or should sell, then I advertise on new listings too because I anticipate that they will. But until that point, until you can for certain say, then only advertise the ones you sell because you'll burn through budget otherwise quick.
Yep, and if it's crap, then you're just gonna waste that money. It doesn't matter how much money you throw at it. Money does not fix the problem.
Yep, totally agree. I just switched to Everbee for a month, and I've learned more this past week than I ever did. This is a comment. More than a month at eRank. I'll likely go back to eRank because of cost, but maybe do Everbee occasionally. I love both tools. They both have their place. But the problem is when you start bouncing around between a bunch of tools, right?
Yeah, you don't want to do that. And really quick, just to throw it out there, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jay, but I did a video on eRank, and nothing against eRank. I don't even know who owns it, but literally found a bestseller that was on Amazon, took their SEO keywords, threw it in there, and put it on there. And it said that those keywords do not actually have any traction. Meanwhile, on Amazon, it said it sold 1,000 items that past month. So when I went to Everbee and looked at those keywords showed hits on Etsy. And then again, when I went to eRank and looked at it for it, it said that there were 0 hits as well. So I'm going to trust Everbee's data. Again, nothing against eRank. I just trust Everbee's data. And this isn't just because I talked to Cody. This is way before I even met Cody, so just throwing that out there. You can see my older videos where I'm actually testing that and showing it in real time.
Yeah, it's cool. And I think that there's nothing wrong with using 2 tools either on my side of things. I use multiple tools for business, but I typically stay with them just because I use them for different purposes. There's always going to be specialties. Everyone, just like you watch multiple YouTube channels, it's like you kind of use them both, right? You kind of leverage them both. So it makes total sense. And I agree, like eRank, I don't know, Anthony, I think is the founder. I don't know him personally, but they've done a great job. They've been around for a long time. I've heard really great things. I think that where Everbee's value is, I imagine mostly people would agree, is in the product research value of like understanding the data. Like we analyze over 153 million listings right now in real time every single day. Like we're running background jobs. Like that's a significant amount of server space and data processing that we're running every day. So, and I think of the value that it creates is if you just learn one product, then that can be a $10,000, $20,000 a month revenue product. So that's the way I look at it. So totally. That's a good question or good comment.
There's a question here really quick. I just wanted to touch base on it. It says, do any of you use NAN in your businesses? I just want to say my YouTube channel is going to be teaching more automation soon. So cool. Definitely check that out. It will help you if you are not familiar with it. It's one of the easiest tools, even though it's rated that it's harder. It's really not. But you have like make.com and Zapier and things like that. So I'm going to help with all that. So anybody that is looking for automation, I do plan on helping, which is why most of us are able to, live the lives we have is because of everything being automated or we delegate.
There was a comment here. I really liked here, Carla, again with the bombs. Why equals leverage, a stepping stone to buy back my time, not just about income, but about creating something that compounds so I can eventually trade output for ownership and earn freedom instead of tasks. This could be expanded into like a 90-minute session on its own, right? Huge.
Yeah, huge.
Next question. So we'll just touch on this quick. So when you guys come across copycat for your product, what do? Complain or report? No point complaining. You can report. If you're not going to report, move on, I would say.
I call them directly. Call their cell phone. No, nice. I'm just
kidding. Anush, what about when things sell within the first 2-3 weeks and then no more? Kill it? My personal take on this is never kill a listing if it's got any kind of sales volume in 2-3 weeks and then it doesn't sell for another 2-3 weeks. Could just be a blip, right?
Yeah, have to wait a little bit longer than that. Maybe 90 days. If it doesn't have anything after 90, then something's wrong.
Something changed. There's a competitor out there. There's something better. Brittany says, what helps you get accepted for merch by Amazon more quickly? I was denied. Anybody that tells you anything other than what I'm about to say is lying. They don't tell us, so we can't tell you. We can take our best educated guesses, right? But that's all you're ever going to get. I've got a video on how to get, kind of clickbaity, right? But that's part of the part and parcel here it's like get accepted fast. Well, it's the best practices for what I would do that I believe got me accepted quickly, right? My first attempt. you can apply and apply and apply over and over. I know several people who have applied more than 10 times. So I would, just continue to apply. The caveat is you're going to need a new email address and potentially a new phone number now. But I think if it's just a new email address, just keep applying. There's no reason not to. I would make sure that your application is in English and in proper grammar. You can apply in different countries, different languages, but whichever one you pick, at least make the grammar proper. Have it edited by somebody if English isn't your first language. I think that's one of the biggest ones I see a lot. You want to be taken seriously as a business, right? So, quick one. How's Believe? Sounds like a dream. It's awesome. It's not without its hiccups. Like we all say, you talk about, working for ourselves. It's awesome. We would never go back. It's way 1,000 million times better than working for somebody else in a corporate crap. But it's not without its hiccups, right? I was on internet for a year and a half here that felt like dial-up, and we finally got fiber optic, and even then it's capped at 50. My internet I had to stream was $300 a month, so I could actually run a business, right? So there's sacrifices there for sure, but it still beats the hell out of 8 months of gray skies and winter in Canada. I'll tell you that. Thanks for asking. Liz, can you explain the process for scaling after your first product and what that looks like? So I think, Cody, you were kind of touching on, or both of you, on, what some people refer to in POD or whatever as scaling, meaning more of the same design with just changing a word versus what, scaling truly means from a business perspective, right?
Yeah, so I'll jump in first, and then maybe George, you can kind of clean it all up with actual good tasks and stuff that you're really good at. First, when I think about scaling, I always think about revenue scaling. Revenue, like you could scale anything. You could scale your expenses if you want to scale your expenses, but like that's not the goal. The goal is scaling revenue. And so if that usually means is I have one or a group of products that just happen to find product market fit, meaning just like I understand the market that wants to buy them, and I have the solution for that market, and like it's a beautiful thing, and it just happens to work. People are just like pulling in the product. They want that design, and it just like seems effortless. If you've ever experienced that, then you really know what I'm talking about. It just seems like it's too easy almost. That's like when you're getting a touch of PMF, they call it product market fit. That's when you're ready to usually start to scale revenue. And typically what you want to do, it's hard to do on Etsy. You can try to scale ads on Etsy, but that I think all three of us have tried this. Other people tried this. You can't really direct all the revenue to one listing on Etsy. So that's typically where you want to actually be on your own site and actually scale that specific product or group of products or your site. That way you want to do that typically with Facebook ads, TikTok ads, Google ads, things like this. Usually my experience mostly falls in Meta and Facebook ads because that you have a winning product, and now you're just like trading $1 for $2, $1 for $2, $1 for $2. That's like what scale looks like. The cool thing about this, as long as you're watching the numbers, is that you can spend $100,000 and you got $300,000 in revenue, right? So like that's in 1 month, right? That's what scale looks like when you start to like scale a brand or scale a product. That's my answer. George, go ahead.
No, yeah, that's perfect right there. It's just, taking it simple, easy, little by little, scaling it to see the revenue. Don't throw everything all at once. Maybe launch 10 new products, not 100 new products. And it's funny that you said the $100,000 thing, because that's where I said, earlier I said I scaled too fast. Perfect example, I spent $100,000 on leather for the holiday. So I thought I was going to sell all this, leather for Christmas. And guess what happened? Half of it died. It didn't. It just sat there. And now I have to wait until next year because of it. So just start small and just follow the revenue. Like, Cody said, if this one is pushing all the money, then you push all the ads behind there and just keep on going that way. You don't want to have 1,000 different items because that's not proper scaling. You want to scale smart, work smarter, not harder.
Yeah. And totally agree with both of you there. So I don't really have much to add on that because it's hit the nail on the head there. But this kind of was a segue. Cody was from my community earlier. I was like talking about Everbee Shop here, but is it worth it to open my store, or should I just keep scaling Etsy first? At what point do you think, I guess we can turn this question, reframe it. At what point do you think it makes sense to open your new shop? Is there a ceiling that you hear, and what would the recommendation be that way? I think like Everbee Shop makes it ridiculously easy right now.
Yeah, I think as soon as, for me, it's one, you can't scale on Etsy, like really truly scale on Etsy. You cannot. Scale means you can like put in $1 and you always get 3, and it's almost predictable. You can like scale on Etsy, but it's like you cannot do that repeatedly forever or every single time and understand the results. So that's my opinion on this. As far as the revenue threshold or some sort of rule of thumb, I guess you could say, I don't know if I have one. I'll say this. You want to have a certain, like, you want to have a certain amount of knowledge of like, I understand what my product is and I understand the customers that I'm serving. That needs to be tight, or you want that to be tight. And that way, when you go to actually drive your own traffic through your own store, you know how to reach them, you know where they hang out, you know how to talk to them, you know how to like, you understand who that person is and what solution you bring to that table. I think that is more important than like a certain threshold or something from my perspective. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, Etsy is, and I believe Etsy is a great starting point because it gives you that reassurance, like in the customer, right? If you open just Shopify right from the start or Everbee store right from the start, nobody knows who you are, so you have to prove yourself. If you have that Etsy store and now you open up that Everbee store, you have both. So when people Google you because they're curious, hey, should I even buy from this person? They're going to see that you have both, and you're more trusted because you're on that platform. So they may shop on Etsy or they may shop in your own, but you can push ads there, but they'll see you on both. And that's really the important, way on being seen. You want that trust, and to build that trust, it's either you go one route or the other. Etsy doesn't cost as much money. The other route is spending a shitload of money in ads to build their trust.
Yeah, well said.
Great question.
Yeah, we'll get through as many as we can here as fast as we can. So, and we got a really loaded one, a great one from Carla that I want to touch on too for Cody after. Q, can you explain the process for scaling after your first product and what that looks like? We kind of touched on that.
Covered that one. Yeah, I think we covered that one.
By the way, really quick on the note of me spending all that money for the Christmas holiday, I actually was a cocky prick and I had this video and I'm like, spent $100,000 on all this stuff. Watch it fly off the shelf. Guess what it didn't do? It didn't fly off the shelf. So don't be a cocky prick.
Yeah. The only worse than being cocky,
I'm like, oh my God, what?
Right. The only thing worse than doing that and then having it bite you in the ass is if you spent a bunch of money on it too. Right. Lifestyle mockup or flat lay. My take, honestly, is it depends on your niche. We're seeing a resurgence of a ton of just flat lays. There's a shop on there on Etsy somewhere with almost 400K sales, a mockup shop, and everybody's trying to emulate the same shops. But there's also the shops out there crushing it with some oversized, kind of like the dark gothic vibe, lifestyle mockups, right? So my take has always been that it will, it's always good to take things from shops that are working, but it's always going to depend on your niche, I think, at the end of the day. What do you think, guys?
A/B test. You'll figure out like on what your consumer likes, if they like the life flats or if they like the lifestyle better.
Yeah, I agree.
How soon should you trademark?
Oh, great question.
You don't need to, really. I mean, in my personal opinion, I don't think it's necessary.
I have a couple, and I would say if you have the pockets to litigate, if you need to, then it's probably not necessary because the trademark doesn't absolve and guarantee a lot of things. Either way, it just kind of gives you like a more of a official crutch, right?
Yeah, my answer would be this too. I agree. Like you don't need to do this, but if it's going to be like your long-term business and you know this at that point, like you validated, like you're getting sales, you're like, oh, I'm all in on this for the next like 5 years. Then start to think about doing it and just go ahead and do it. It's not a bad thing to do, but again, you're gonna need money for this, of course, not that much, but just a little bit, effort, a little bit for this. The benefits, there's not that many benefits to this other than like, if you're a successful business, like you're almost just protecting downside. I've done a couple trademarks myself and I don't regret any of those. No. But it costs money, and don't stress about this though. Like don't let this hold you back from like starting your business and getting sales. Like get sales first. Sales cures all. Revenue cures all.
Yeah, it's the same thing with people saying, oh, should I have an LLC right in the beginning? It's like, you don't need to necessarily. It's not necessary right from the start. It's beneficial, obviously, tax-wise. But, when you're first getting started and you're trying to make that first $1,000, don't think, okay, well, I need to spend $1,000 on my LLC. Depending on what state you are in, it can be very costly. So first, try to make sure you're making some money, then do that.
Yeah, I think like having a trademark, if you are going to have an exit, so if you're going to sell your business, having anything proprietary that way really will kind of help. It gives you that cohesion, the branding, everything's kind of built around that, right? But if you don't go down that, like again, not necessarily necessary, depending on where you're at in your journey, but don't try to do it yourself for $200 to save the money. Spend the $1,200 or whatever it costs to get a lawyer to do it for you, right? We kind of touched on similar ideas with the accountants in the last chat, but like pay a professional.
My first business that I launched was an LLC, and I did that myself, and I was like, it was torture. Should have just paid somebody. So now I just paid somebody to set it all up.
The other thing with trademarks is you by law have to protect them, right? So now you have to kind of, implement ways to go hunting almost for infringers too, right? In order to show that you own it, you got to kind of flex that muscle a little too. So there is that, right? There are services that'll do that for you, but I mean,
knowing when to use a trademark, when to use a copyright, when you're protected just underneath the law in general, there's just so much. So talking to a lawyer is probably the best bet.
And I do have on
revenue
that note,
first.
Yeah, revenue is important.
Focus on use almost like if you have $1,200 and it's like they lost $1,200. Don't spend it on your trademark and your LLC. Like go get sales and all this stuff. Kind of like fortunately just kind of clears up. You start to understand what to do next after you get sales. It's really interesting.
Don't do it if you've got nothing to protect, right? Like it makes no sense.
Yeah, and my actual company, the biggest one, the one that sold all the leather, people have taken that name before and tried to branch it into their own. It's not trademarked, and I don't give a crap because when somebody Googles it, they're going to find me, and then that consumer is going to look at all these other people and be like, "Wow, I hate these people. This isn't them. This isn't them." And then they just get more mad at them, and then they are happy that they found me. So I get more purchases that way.
Yeah. I do have an interview with my lawyer in my YouTube channel. You can probably just type in trademark in the search bar and you'll see what pops up there.
I have one too. Actually, it's good.
Great. Good question.
Yeah. I don't think anybody wants to be interviewed. They're like, oh my God, what did he just ask?
What difference between Etsy and Amazon buyers? I mean, does all design work for both sites? So my take on this has been always that Amazon is like it's the United States of the fashion world versus the boutique Europe when you're talking about like print on demand shirts, for example, like fashion type stuff. And Etsy has been more of the boutique UK European stuff where most of that stuff is born. And the way North America and United States and Canada, we're about 3 years behind. Typically, it used to be 5. I think we're closing that to 2 or 3. And that's also because more people are paying attention to the other things. So there was always a time where your bestseller on Etsy could live a little longer, your evergreen that is dying, like I was saying about shelf life. When it starts to kind of slow down, you might be able to buy 2 more years of really good sales on Amazon with it. Conversely, if you're on Amazon and it's a bestseller there, it doesn't mean that it's going to do well on Etsy because there's already people iterating better, making newer, making cooler things there. It's more of the boutique, right? You never want to take like a mass-produced product and go try to sell it in a boutique ultimately, where you can take a boutique kind of thing, make it appeal slightly more to the masses, if that makes sense. I don't know if you guys have different takes on that. Be interesting.
Yeah, personalization is huge on Etsy. It'll always be huge because you have the no judgment.
Yeah, I agree.
Done in there. I mean, some people have seen some crazy things, and I know I do all the time when I'm on a live trying to show something, and all of a sudden, a certain product pops up because it's popular, and I'm like trying to get past it really quick. But that's the difference between Etsy and Amazon. Amazon doesn't allow certain things, and Etsy does. They're perfectly fine with it.
Am I right in waiting for organic sales and then wait for a winner and then buy ads for the winner? I don't wait. Personally, I would run ads to it to get the data faster. What do you guys think?
As long as you have some sort of, organic wise is like, okay, did I get 1 favorite or 2 favorites? Then from there, start running ads. Because otherwise the only thing is because Etsy ads has changed so much over the years that if you run an ad to it and it doesn't gain traction within that first week, they'll stop pushing it. And then you just kind of screwed yourself. So you at least need something in there showing you have and it's in the right direction. I mean, yes, definitely push ads towards it. But as soon as you get one favorite or even two favorites, push the crap out of it and keep on going. And then
I
get rid of.
I miss the days when we could control the cost per click per individual.
Yes. Yeah, and not many people remember that. 2019, 2020. I think it changed. 2021 is when I started using it.
Yeah, it changed around COVID time, I think. But, yeah. Who has a good listing video tutorial? I would probably argue all three of us do. I know even Everby probably.
I have a whole entire module on it with it. It's about 2.5 hours. So in my community.
Nice. And I have a much shorter version for a quick start guide too. So I would check out both, right? Get started and then go watch George's for the nitty gritty.
Yeah, watch them all. You're gonna learn. You're gonna pick up something from every single person in here.
Absolutely. What's your most selling subject right now? So I'm gonna just say niche. That's probably for me right now is and has always been birthdays. If I'm going down it, but ultimately, if we're looking at things like I would focus on trying to. If you're asking like what to go into, I would try to focus on things that you can give as gifts. It doesn't have to be birthdays, right? But memorial, like people are on Etsy to buy gifts for other people for the most part, right? I don't go buy stuff for me on Etsy. It's for other people. I go to the Amazons in the world when I need something because I'm cheap. I'm gonna buy that 10-pack of underwear and 3-pack of socks. Well, I don't wear socks anymore, but you know what I mean? I'm frugal and kind of Stacy will tell you I'm cheap, right? But the nice things that people buy me, for example, will have come from other people buying them from like the Etsys of the planet. So what about you, George? You got a niche or topic?
Weddings right now, summertime.
Also personalizable, also a massive one.
Yes.
And leverage the gift buying opportunities with the bridal packages and the bachelorette stuff, right?
I think pets are good too. Pets typically. I know it's kind of general, but pet parents always want to like same thing with gifting though. Gifting approach to it. It's like everyone knows somebody that's obsessed with their dog or their cat, right? It's like so typically like you buy them a funny shirt for a gift for that pet parent.
I lost that last one, but we can go into Carlos' comment here. I'm sorry, whoever that was. Maybe you can drop it again. But Carlos, for Cody, does Everby have any plans to integrate optional Etsy ads data to compare trends and returns? Etsy sellers constantly struggle to understand how listing changes affect ads performance. And this is heavy because Etsy's always changing.
Yeah. So we've talked about Etsy ads. Thanks for that question, Carla. We've talked about Etsy ads lots of times, of course, at Everby. The biggest holdup we've always got back was Etsy's API, and they don't have an endpoint where we can actually gather this data for your shop, for example. So therefore, it's like what can Everby do really? So then we would rely on you to like copy paste your data, probably download it, copy paste your data, and throw it into our tool, and then like we analyze it, which we can do. We found that the friction probably, like you're probably one of the only people that would be willing to do that, right? And you and maybe like the other top 1% of, which is super useful, but it's hard to justify it, like for us to do it, just because it'd be just so much better with an API. So we've asked Etsy to actually open up an API endpoint for us for the Etsy ads. They just haven't really done that for whatever reason. I think I'd like to bring this to our product team though, to at least think about it more again.
Probably because they know you'll make it better and do something better.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think it's part of the reason. So I was on my test account the other day, and it was really funny because obviously nothing's been on that test account, no listings, anything. And I clicked on ads to show somebody something, and it said in 2019 Etsy ads this and that. And I'm like, 2019? It's 2025. What the heck? So that's probably why they don't want to open up their APIs, because just like Jay said, you'll do a better job.
Yeah, usually it's interesting because they'll actually do, when we do a better job, then that means our sellers and creators do a better job. And then usually when they do a better job, Etsy makes way more money, right? So, and they have recognized that too, if I'm honest. If we talked to the Etsy team numerous times, and they do recognize the value of like third-party tools like us, creators actually using that. It's interesting. The data suggests to them, this is coming from Etsy, that sellers that use third-party tools end up doing like way higher percentage-wise of sales, which is really cool. And that's why they invested back into putting Everby into their platform, which is in their app marketplace, which is pretty cool.
One last question here, and then one comment. So I'll show Carla's comment here, and then we got to save some of the good stuff for next time, right? We're definitely gonna have to do this again. We've had a pretty good turnout. So, Carla, 4 ways to scale on Etsy. For those of you who are asking those questions, more, better, new, and paid. Dropping the knowledge bombs. And then the last one for today, as far as questions go, and we can, shoot the breeze for a little bit longer if you guys wanted, but Clementine is saying, how long do you usually keep a listing active before deactivating it if it hasn't made any sales? Good question.
I'll let Jay answer this one because she is part of my group, so she hears it from me all the time. So maybe you give her a different insight.
Sure. Yeah. So this is if I really believe something has a chance to sell and just hasn't, potentially hit a particular season, I might, for 20 cents each, relist it 3 times. That'll cover me a year, all 4 seasons, a Q4 especially, because if it doesn't sell, at Q4, it's arguably never going to sell, depending on, unless you're selling specifically wedding, or if you're, more on the evergreen spectrum here. That said, if it hasn't sold in your first 90 days, something's wrong with it anyway, probably. So I would re-examine it. But if you do that and then you A/B test and you figure out a couple of new iterations that are maybe you improve on the design, does it really hold up with like the best sellers out there? If you truly believe so, then it doesn't cost you more than another 40 cents on top of that 20 to go another 8 months at a time, right? But after that, I would just let it expire. I wouldn't just necessarily pull it unless it was detrimental to my shop. Like, again, if you're selling all red stuff and you have something green over here, then it doesn't make sense for the vibe, right? I don't know if that aligns with what you were thinking.
Yeah, I mean, 90 days is like the big. It's not 90 days. Keeping it is BS. If you have something for 12 months and it hasn't done anything, I don't know why you're still keeping it. So
90
she
days.
She knows that because I always tell her all the time. I'll message her and say, get rid of this or get rid of that. But she wants me to yell at her, and I don't want to yell at her because Clementine is a very nice person. So I can't yell at you. I know she's always asking, just be straight with me. And I was like, your designs are nice, so I'm not going to be an asshole.
Do you think we could take that last question from Billy? POD
Sure.
Candles?
Yeah, let's show that. Where's information? There we go.
It's a common question.
Billy, I'm just POD Candles as a newbie on Etsy to learn the platform starting this year. Congratulations for taking the step to making a shop, because that's where most people get hung up. Just 1K in sales a month. Should I go for a year to learn more, or open a new shop now with more profitable or scalable and/or products?
It's a great question. So curious what you guys think about this, but I guess my first thought was, if you're new and you're making a sales $1,000 a month in sales, that's pretty damn good. So first of all, like, you are onto something. So just understand that you figure out pieces that 98% of people have not figured out in a short period of time. So recognize that. Congratulations. The next thing I would say is, I wouldn't necessarily go for a year. Like, don't think of it that way. Think about maybe more in revenue milestones. So like, I'm going to get this thing to $10,000 a month before I can allow myself to like do the next thing. Or it could be 20,000 a month or 10,000 a month, like whatever you want it to do. Just make a rule. Don't necessarily make it a time rule, if that makes sense. Because it sounds like you've already kind of figured out the basics. And the reason why I say that is because when I look at, maybe I could share my screen real quick. If you look at candles, I typed in candle gift here in Everbee, and like, there's so much opportunity in candles. And I'm assuming your POD, you said. So like, this is, I don't know if you can see my screen, Sarah's Last Nerve. Yeah. This thing's doing 10,000 a month in this product alone. So like, there's opportunity. This is one product. So if you just like have a couple winners, you can actually grow the shop pretty significantly. And versus starting all over with a brand new product, hopefully try to find some sort of product market fit and all that stuff. I would say stick with your kind of space that you've learned in, and just like break that thing open. You've struck a seam of gold in the mountain. Now your job is to break it open. Do not just get a piece of gold and then put the gold in your pocket and then move over there and start hammering away, starting a brand new hole, if that makes sense. Sorry, I'm going to run with this gold thing. but it'd be silly, right? Wouldn't that be silly? Versus you found this stream of gold or this like vein of gold, fucking hammer it. Keep going on that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the big thing is, with $1,000, I would assume that you're not running a ton of ads. So you're getting that revenue in, and like Cody said, you want to expand on that revenue. You want to streamline it. You want to see how much you can get out of it before you move on and go to something else. The thing is, the big thing that a lot of people do is they'll open up multiple shops, and what happens is when you do that, you tend to pay attention to one shop more than the other. So this $1,000 shop, you're making $1,000 here, and you open up your second shop. That $1,000 shop is probably going to lose $1,000 a month because you're going to start paying attention to shop 2, and that's going to, and then you open up shop 3, and so on and so forth. So you're not going to be able to build overall. You need one to be successful, make it as high as you go, automate it, have everything running smoothly, then think about opening up that second one. And push as much as you can, push it to the brink, and then think about opening up that other one.
Yeah, just to pretty much piggybacking on what these guys said, I totally agree here, is that, I would say go for a year, give it a year. If you're going from 0 and you have not, time bound kind of tasks are good because you need to know when to pull the plug or pivot at the same time if you're not making money, right, or doing anything. But you've kind of cracked the nut. You're saying you're new this year, so you're arguably no more than 5 months in. You're making $1,000 a month. That is not nothing. You are doing something really right here, right? So to Cody's point, I would exploit that. You've just hit like the tip of the iceberg here. That iceberg analogy, there's always like way more under that you can't see. So I would hammer on that. I don't know. Somebody's got some serious feedback going on there. So I would hit hammer that. Sorry, Cody, I had to mute you there. I would just absolutely hammer it. You don't keep the timeline on this now. Keep the timeline on the tangents that you're going to go into your business now, right? So you're going to, keep doing what you're doing. If something's showing up over here, hammer that. If it starts to fizzle out a bit, then go off of that, right? Those are the time-bound things from there. But don't just think about completely restarting or, like to George's point, starting a new store, because you're never going to have the energy to execute both, properly until you get one to where you need to be.
Be strategic about it, especially when running ads. Be strategic. I spend a ton of money on ads, but if I'm spending a ton of money on ads and not making any money, that's something wrong. I'm not being strategic with it. So, think that way as well. So when you're expanding and you want to push that product, how can I do it with as little money as possible? Because then as you add more money, now it'll really blow up. If you can really, if you're getting that $1,000 organically, you could definitely build something crazy pushing ads behind it, because that would be insane. But, if you're not getting any money and then you push a ton of ads behind it, you're not going to go anywhere. So all about strategic game plan.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Dudes, this is awesome. We definitely need to do this again. I think we should almost make this a regular thing. 2 in 2 weeks here is firing everybody up, and people want more. I'm getting some DMs already. So you guys are great. I can't thank you both enough for wanting to do this and wanting to hook up. So
this is great. And by the way, anybody that saw my recent video about me and my new studio, the tree is actually completely dead now. So that's fun.
Nice. I will check that out.
I'm keeping this as quiet as possible so that my wife doesn't hear it, but I bought a fake one, so I'm going to put the fake one in there so she doesn't know. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, so go check everybody. Thank you for tuning in, folks. We had like 90 people at one point, so thanks for tuning in. Check out Cody's YouTube channel, George's as well. George's got the community. Cody's got Everbee Shop. Check it all down in the links below. I've also got my membership, which we're probably looking at opening this weekend. So go check that out. Going to be on sale, 45% off. So you're looking at $37 a month. Just to kind of get back to what I really want to do is that, less than $10 a week. I want it to be a no-brainer, and I want it to be too awesome to ever quit ultimately. So go get some value. Go watch a bunch of these guys' videos, and we'll see you guys soon.
See y'all.
Everybody.